Chapter 251 Tier 8 Lord Abyss Monster. 10 years passed. Maximus and Skye strolled through the city leisurely to recover their psyche after the battle. As they walked, people gazed at them like idols, their eyes shining. "Look, it's the two new monsters." "Hiss, don't be too loud, maybe they'll eat you." "But I heard they were quickly nice." "Sure, that's only if you shut up." A group of fresh blood who just arrived at the Eternal Ruin stronghold chattered about them. Over the 10 years, Maximus and Skye had become quite famous. After surviving the grueling 10 years, their standing in the stronghold reached that of top squads. They also broke records from time to time until they were regarded as the fastest rising stars. Maximus, Lore who found them, greeted. "Is there something?" "No, I just want to congratulate you on being promoted to Vanquisher," Lore smiled. Vanquisher was already the highest ranked status beside Executioner. With this rank, Maximus could set up a shop in Purgatory City. "Thanks," Maximus smiled. In this decade, although the Abyss monsters he killed outside the stronghold couldn't be counted in the contribution points, there were still 2 to 3 Abyss monsters attacking the stronghold every month. Maximus and Skye didn't hide much of their strength and fought with the main Abyss monster alongside the top squad. All of this elevated their status rank like no other. "By the way, did you two really not want to join any squad?" "No, not for now," Maximus shook his head. A few years ago with their fame, top squads issued invitations one after another. Unfortunately, Maximus and Skye were loners who couldn't be tempted by anything. "Hey, what a pity," Allure sighed. "Then be careful, we are traveling closer to the Abyss source layer now." "The danger should be multiplied 100 times, Allure advised. "It seems that there is some truth in your words," Maximus smiled as he pointed outside. An Abyss monster exuding a fearsome aura, stronger than all the Abyss monsters he knew, was just outside the stronghold barrier. With it was a group of Abyss monster army that should be at least Tier 7 elite. Turning his head, Lore's face couldn't help but be gloomy. A Tier 8 Lord-level Abyss monster. "We're done," the people beside them said blankly. A Tier 8 Lord-level Abyss monster was a bit stronger than an Apex Sovereign. / If the 3 Apex Sovereigns in their stronghold didn't move, they were truly over. "Calm down, retreat carefully to the core of the stronghold." Lore instructed. The core of the stronghold Abyss is the emergency retreat place they specifically designated. It is the strongest structure in the stronghold, capable of withstanding multiple attacks from beings at the level of an Apex Sovereign. Hearing Lore's words, the panicked crowd seemed to have found their support and quickly flew toward their retreat. Maximus was not too panicked and looked at the Abyss monster with interest. He wondered what rank of Abyss source was in this Abyss monster. During these 10 years, with the harvest he had from the Abyss monster he killed and the annual exchange auction, he had already amassed about 1,000 normal quality Tier 7 Abyss sources, making his daily system points harvest reach a whopping 100 billion. This is also his confidence in standing here and look straight into the Lord-level Abyss monster without fear. With over 100 billion system points daily, most of his copied domain and special physique began to be integrated. From attack, defense, speed, and auxiliaries, his strength took another leap up. Now, he could kill a Tier 7 Lord-level Abyss monster without much effort. Unfortunately, through all of this good news, he still couldn't break through the Abyss realm barrier. It seems that dimensional breaking domains and physique are not enough. Fortunately, there is his bug of unlimited mana. A few years ago, as soon as he finished integrating this dimensional barrier, domain, and physique, he tried to sense the Ethereum coordinate. Unfortunately, as he tried to activate his barrier-breaking skill, he was rebounded by a huge force. Seeing it was not effective, he revised his plan. He was inspired by the special physique, Abyss Focalization. Condensing one's strength in one point, you can attack ahead of your tier. Merging this with the dimensional barrier-breaking skill, he saw hope. With enough mana, he can accumulate this atomic bomb-like attack until it can explode the world. Now, after a few years of running in, under the supply of his unlimited mana, the attack that was accumulating in his dimensional storage was already as big as the sun. If anyone was here, they would have huge palpitations as if facing a great extinction. Maximus estimated that he only needed a few decades more before he could go back to the Ethereum realm. Although it was still a longer time than estimated, at least he was able to go back to his home. Soon most of the people in the stronghold retreated as the top squads remained. "Are you sure you want to fight in this?" Lore asked with a smile as he looked at the two. It's only a few million Tier 7 elite abyss monsters and a few Lord Abyss monsters, Maximus said, shrugging his shoulders.
Hee hee, this should be fun.
Skye smiled. You too? Lore shook his head. Just wait later, after the 3 Apex Sovereigns lure the Tier 8 Lord-level Abyss monster, we can attack, Lore said. Just to ask, all the harvest is ours this time, right? Skye asked, like a money fan. Yes, this Tier 8 Lord Abyss monsters should be enough for the Apex Sovereigns, Lore nodded. Hearing this, Maximus smiled. With the scan of his system, he already saw tens of thousands of Tier 6 Abyss sources and some Abyss monsters. There were even a few hundred Tier 7 Abyss sources hidden. Although it would make the fight harder, it would also make the harvest richer. As the Abyss monsters bombarded the stronghold barrier, the top squad remaining felt a mix of nervousness and excitement. Finally, after a few minutes of attack, the stronghold barrier crashed like a breaking glass. What pitiful beings! The Tier 8 Abyss monster spoke in their language. As a Lord-level Abyss, its intelligence was no joke. In just a few minutes of attacking the stronghold barrier, it had already studied the language of the beings living in it. You should worry about yourself first, an Apex Sovereign, Yagan, the god of fire and volcanoes, said. Oh? A stronger ant? The Abyss monster mocked. What? Yagan exploded as the fire in his body was like boiling magma. Relax, just think of it as a talking shit, Hydrid, a Tier 9 mechanic and alchemist who mastered the law of metal, conformed. That's right, you shouldn't talk to this kind of monster in the first place, Melk, the leader of the Falcon tribe who mastered the law of wind, said. 3 little ants. The Abyss monster muttered angrily like a deep abyss. Hee hee, look, a shit is talking, Yagan mocked, listening to his 2 partners. Enough. The Abyss monster didn't want to talk any longer and attacked. A huge group of Abyss auras suddenly gathered, forming an attack. An elemental-type Abyss monster? Melk muttered, seeing the Abyss aura forming into thunder. D. The Abyss monster said as the storm of lightning descended into the stronghold. Suddenly, a wind barrier barely parried the attack. Let's take this outside, it's too dangerous, Hydrid suggested, sweating as he saw the stronghold was nearly destroyed. Alright, the other 2 nodded. Come here, you piece of shit. Yagan cursed as he crashed a ball of fire into the Abyss monster. Humph! The Abyss monster was also angry and followed them. It can't withstand the mocking of being from a low dimension. As a Lord-level being in the Abyss, it also had some pride. Too strong. Maximus thought, looking at the leaving Abyss monster. Just the strike of thunder earlier, he didn't know if he could survive scratch-free. Fortunately, it seemed that the Tier 9 Apex Sovereign in the stronghold was not some fledglings. They should have mastered at least 70% of the essence of law. Ready? Lore suddenly yelled as the Tier 7 Abyss monster began to descend. Finally, a fight. Skye clenched her knuckles as she got ready. Maximus also turned his attention to the Abyss monster. I hope you give me some entertainment. Maximus thought as he also got ready. Spreading his domain, he locked one of the Tier 7 Lord Abyss monsters who was coming to them. Crazy! What a lunatic! A few squads near him cursed, seeing he locked a Tier 7 Abyss Lord on his own. This is something that even top squads need to group together to kill, yet Maximus presumptuously attacked it alone. Do you need help? Lore asked. No, do your thing, Maximus shook his head. He also needed to show some strength from time to time. Furthermore, there are 3 Tier 7 Lord Abyss monsters. With their current state, if the Lord Abyss monster 3 attacks simultaneously, there would be a lot of casualties. Attacking one is just right as they kill the other 2. Okay, then be careful, Lore nodded. Although he didn't know the exact strength of Maximus, seeing his confidence, there should be no problem in a short time. Chapter 252 The Puppet Show. Hearing that Maximus can solo the Tier 7 Lord Abyss monster, most bystanders were in disbelief. Although this feat is possible, few people in history were really able to accomplish it. Beside him, Skye looked worriedly. Do you want help? No, I'll mark the Abyss monster that should be suitable for you, Maximus said. Are you sure? Then be careful. Skye sighed. She knew that once Maximus set his mind to something, there was no changing it. Furthermore, during the 10 years of fighting Abyss monsters, Maximus proved to himself again and again that he was the strongest existence in the same tier ever. After looking at the various Abyss monsters he marked, Skye didn't bother anymore and flew toward them. Seeing that there was no longer anyone beside him, Maximus looked at the Tier 7 Lord Abyss monster in front of him. Inside his domain, this Abyss monster looked like a toy ready for his disposal. What an Abyss monster! Maximus smiled. If not for being worried about exposing his strength, Maximus could crush the likes of this just with his domain. You unbound me, a lowly being. The Abyss monster struggled to speak. Lord-level Abyss monsters are really intelligent, Maximus marveled. A lowly being. The Abyss monster shot a killing intent. Don't worry, the show is about to begin. Maximus sneered. Converging his domain, a string-like substance suddenly began to emerge, binding the Abyss monster. The Lord Abyss monster looked with horror as he felt his mind and body being consumed. No matter how it struggles, the string-like substance consumes him slowly but surely. Like a puppet who lost its soul, the Abyss monster stopped moving and stared blankly at him. Trying his new toy, Maximus carefully studied its power. A Stormwind elemental-type Abyss monster? TSK, this should be fun. Now let the play begin. Maximus smiled. Soon, like a puppet, the Abyss monster fought Maximus as if they were performing an opera. Buildings after buildings was destroyed, a few individuals were even affected and nearly died. Looking at the show, Maximus was not satisfied. Not enough. He felt that the danger was not enough, not showing the true danger of the Lord-level Abyss monster. Inputting his mana, wind and storm began to emerge as the Abyss monster rampaged. Maximus was also like a born actor, performing dangerous and near-death stunts. The exchange between the two was fiercer than the two Tier 7 Lord-level Abyss and the top squads. This ultimate show also slightly stopped the battle in the surroundings. Looking at such an exciting fight, the top squads remaining in the area couldn't help but admire. Do you think that kid can defeat that Abyss monster? There should be a chance. Although defeating a Lord-level Abyss on the same tier is hard, it's not impossible. Few people in history were able to do it. Like the 3 Apex sovereigns guarding the outpost. In the past, they had a history of killing Abyss monsters of the same level. Don't forget that this Abyss monster may have an Abyss source inside of them. This dash. Then it's impossible. The group woke up in their fantasies. The Lord-level Abyss monsters killed in the past on the same level didn't have an Abyss source embedded inside of them. Unless you are the reincarnation of Malgrin, the strongest being in the world, defeating such an Abyss monster is impossible. Don't worry, that kid should be fine for a while. That's right. Let's quickly kill these two and help that kid. They quickly agreed and became fiercer in the fight. However, the two Lord-level Abyss monsters are not their only enemies. There are also millions of Tier 7 elite Abyss monsters besieging them. Although most of them are already Tier 8 with at least 30% control of law, they are still heavily at a disadvantage. Each of them who had undergone hundreds to thousands of years of battle was beginning to sustain some injuries. Maximus, who was performing a one-sided play, looked at the situation. Not good. He frowned. At the current rate, their stronghold might be destroyed before those Apex sovereigns came back. Unfortunately, the teleportation array in the stronghold was blocked, or they could have called for reinforcement. The Tier 8 Lord-level Abyss monster earlier is quite smart. The earlier attack on the stronghold was just a distraction to hide the fact that its main target is the teleportation array. The Apex sovereigns also hadn't thought much about reinforcement either. Each of them was a top being in their continent. Seeking help is equivalent to admitting that they were incompetent and weak. Anyway, with them here, there would be no serious consequences that can happen. At most, a few top squads will be eliminated or so. Such a loss is not bad compared to their loss of dignity. After a while, Maximus thought of a plan. Since he can control this Lord Abyss monster to perform a play, why not control all the Abyss monsters to perform a grander play? Although it's harder to control, at least he can minimize the casualties. Thinking of the feasibility of his plan, he immediately began to move, flying all around the battlefield while dodging the stormy wind attacks. Maximus quickly spread his domain and bound all the Abyss monsters in his domain. This move didn't go unnoticed, as some of the most perceptive ones noticed a pause. However, the fast-paced battlefield prevented them from thinking too much. All the abnormalities that didn't affect the battlefield were quickly put aside by them. Maximus, seeing this, heaved a sigh of relief. Although his origin domain was almost invisible now due to multiple merging of copied domains and a special physique, Maximus still had worries as the people here were not simple. Now that no one bothered with this phenomenon, he can finally complete this grand play. 1, 2, 3, action! Maximus thought internally. Instantly, the abyss monsters began to be aggressive and attacked all around wantonly, regardless of foe or allies. The sudden change in the battlefield caused panic. Unfortunately, the abyss monsters were like unmerciful killing machines and didn't give them time to reflect. Bombardment after bombardment fell one after another. Soon, various fatalities occurred on the battlefield. The faces of the various top squads also gradually began to be distorted as they became insane. They seemed to be more and more scary than the abyss monsters. Each of them had red eyes as they saw killing the abyss monsters as their only goal before they died. With power raging in their bodies, they seemed to regard the battlefield as their burial ground. Like lunatics with no fear, they couldn't help but add more glamour as they fought with all their best. Like a clash of centuries, multiple individuals and abyss monsters began to fall like flies. Meanwhile, Maximus, who was lazily watching the fight, nodded in satisfaction. It seems that my plan is effective. Looking at the fervor and fighting spirits, and the dwindling number of abyss monsters, Maximus flew down and hurriedly healed his fallen comrades back to life. As he only controlled the abyss monsters, he couldn't do much about the rest. He could only make the fight more chaotic and intense so that they wouldn't be able to pay attention to him. As for the fatalities, with a sweep of his domain, all of them came back alive. With only a few seconds of death, healing them back to life was quite easy. He only needed to fix their bodies, mend their souls, and rearrange their laws. As he had already copied their domains and special physiques, all of this was done easily. Of course, he had done it covertly and didn't heal them all the way. After waking up, they should heal for a few months to years depending on their injuries. He also picked some abyss sources from the abyss monsters he personally killed. As the fight raged on, hundreds of thousands of abyss monsters and thousands of individuals from the stronghold remained. The remaining 1,000 were the toughest ones, with at least 70% control of law or having awakened their physique. Looking at the relaxed look on their faces, Maximus thought of making it more exciting. However, before he could control the abyss monsters to attack more fiercely, he felt the Tier 8 abyss monster being besieged by the Apex Sovereigns die.
It's done?
He muttered. Then let's also finish this. Without wasting time, he let the Lord Abyss Monster retreat, taking the others with him. Usually, no abyss monster would ever retreat, but a Lord-level abyss monster is a smart one. It's like a commander in an army capable of advancing and retreating. Looking at the retreating abyss monsters, most of the remaining individuals in the stronghold heaved a sigh in relief. There were also a few battle maniacs who were unsatisfied and wanted to fight more. Turning around to the battlefield, the stronghold was devastated. Almost all the buildings and structures were in ruins. The whole place seemed to be bombarded by missiles. Looking sadly at the battlefield, they couldn't help but think of their fallen comrades. Lore, looking at his squad mate who was alive and kicking earlier and now a cold corpse, couldn't help but sigh. He took out his spiritual consciousness to put the body in a storage ring when he suddenly felt something different.
Huh? Heartbeat?
Chapter 253 Maximus x Skye. Seeing that there was still a heartbeat, Lore couldn't help but check carefully. To his delight, his squad mate was still alive. Although there were various injuries, they should heal after a few years of recuperation. The others, looking at their squad mate and friends, also looked joyful, feeling they still had breath left.
They're still alive? Great, we can still fight together.
After tabulating all their fallen comrades, they noticed that no one was dead. All of them seemed to be only severely injured.
Whose work is this?
Is there such a powerful person? Maybe it's the protection of the Ethereum realm origin will? Just dream, we are just a bunch of soldiers for it. Why would it specifically save us? Then what do you think is the reason no one was dead? The crowd discussed in amazement as they pondered the reason for such a phenomenon. However, even with their wildest imagination, they could never think Maximus was responsible for such a thing. Although he can hold off a Lord-level abyss alone, he can only run for his life. Seeing the 3 Lord-level abyss monsters escape confirmed that Maximus was just a little bit stronger.
Ha ha ha, don't worry about such a thing, we should celebrate instead. Indeed, surviving this catastrophe, we should just thank our luck. Don't be too hasty, we should fix the stronghold first.
While the crowd chattered and celebrated their another lease on life, Skye looked around nervously to find Maximus. Earlier, she was so into the fight that she didn't notice him. Now, hearing that there were no casualties around, Skye was sure that this was Maximus doing. Did you do this?
Skye sighed.
Skye already knew about Maximus's amazing healing capability that could even bring dead people alive. Having this thought, she couldn't help but have a complicated feeling. If what she thought is the truth, then how strong is Maximus? Even she, who had been in different dimensions, felt she was living in another world with him. While the crowd was discussing his grand play, Maximus teleported to the props, the abyss monster he just used. 3 Lord-level abyss monsters and hundreds of thousands of elite-level abyss monsters. Maximus counted. Looking at them trapped in his domain, he smiled. Your task is done, you should return to the abyss. Condensing his domains, the abyss monsters trapped in his domain were crushed into nothingness. The abyss origin then gathered and formed crystal merits. He also quickly pocketed the abyss source. 2,000 Tier 6 abyss sources. 28 Tier 7 normal abyss sources. 3 Tier 7 elite abyss sources. He could never have imagined getting this many abyss source in one battle. His harvest in one battle surpasses what he worked for a decade. A Tier 6 abyss source gave him 1,000,000 system points. A Tier 7 normal abyss source gave him 1,000,000,000 system points. A Tier 7 elite abyss source gave him 100 billion system points. With all that added, plus his previous accumulation, he can get over 430 billion system points daily. Now I can be a little willful with my system points. Maximus smiled at the thought. Although the system points he receives every day are getting higher and higher, his expenses are also getting higher and higher. Just creating the Origin Cultivation Manual, these hundreds of billions of system points are insufficient. There is also the merging of various domains and physiques. By now, they are barely merged together. What he planned was to merge them until they became one with his own. The merging he did is just a preliminary and hasty measure to gain strength quickly. There is also various knowledge about professions like mechanics, alchemy, arrays, etc. Although he no longer needed to study these miscellaneous knowledge, he felt that it was still helpful. At the later stage, all kinds of knowledge reinforce, support, and oppose each other like a network of cycles. It's also helpful to learn it for daily living comfort. Like the manor in his stronghold, it was still intact even after the chaos. He would probably not have a house if he hadn't reinforced the house with various array enhancements. Feeling the apex sovereign about to return to the stronghold, he teleported back. Before Maximus could look around, someone suddenly hugged him from behind.
Skye?
What happened? Maximus asked worriedly, feeling a large fluctuation of emotion in her. Just let me hug you like this, Skye requested. Feeling Maximus's breath, Skye calmed down. They were not living in different worlds. Maximus was here in her embrace. Listening to his heartbeat, she knew Maximus was real and not merely her illusion. The countless epochs of loneliness didn't make her sick and crazy. She just had someone who made her feel this deep emotion that she felt unreal for a second. Maximus, Skye called.
What is it?
Do you love me? Skye asked straightforwardly. Maximus was silent for a while and then broke their embrace. Setting up an isolation barrier, he locked his eyes with hers.
What makes you think that I don't love you?
Maximus asked with a smile. Isn't it? You have so many beautiful wives, and my charm is barely comparable, Skye asked doubtfully. You eat my food, wear my clothes, and you still think I don't love you? Do you want to default on your debt? Maximus asked in amusement. Are you telling the truth? Skye looked at his eyes intently. Yes, I love you. You don't care if I'm barbaric and not womanly? I love you. I can only fight and not do anything. Do you still love me? I love you. Even if I'm a money fan, will you still love me? I love you. No matter what Skye said, he only replied with a sentence. Even if the ground cracked before him, his expression wouldn't change, and he would still say these words lovingly. Looking at Skye, who found reason after reason to hear him say, I love you, he smiled. Fortunately, he had set up an isolation barrier so others did not notice their flirting. After Skye thought of various reasons, hearing the words I love you did not seem enough.
Kiss me, Skye said.
Maximus didn't reply and immediately obliged. A few days later, the stronghold returned to peace. All the debris and destruction were quickly fixed. The hustle and bustle also returned. Those fallen people also woke up from their coma. even after a few days, despite the investigation by the Apex Sovereigns. The reason why they were still alive is still unknown. However, thinking they were near the Abyss Source layer, they quickly threw it to the back of their minds. What about not dying? Although it's unique, it's not so unique that they would waste their time. If they had the time, exploring the Abyss realm and collecting more Abyss Source would be better. There are so many mysteries here that they have already grown numb. Like the phenomenon of an army that suddenly gains strength comparable to Tier 9. Although it's only fake, without the control of the law it was still unbelievable. There are even treasures that can revive beings that have long been dead. Or awakening physique while taking a walk in the abyss. There are so many that the mere phenomenon of not directly dying is not worth their attention. Meanwhile, Maximus and Skye stayed in their residence, doing great deeds. After a few days of indulgence, Skye's thirst was finally satisfied. Looking at Skye obediently lying in his eyes, Maximus couldn't help but smile. "What are you smiling for?" Skye asked in puzzlement. "Nothing, I just think you are becoming more and more beautiful." You're just blind, I'm naturally beautiful." "I'm indeed blind for not getting you sooner," Maximus nodded in agreement. "It's good that you know what you're missing." Skye pinched his cheeks. "Blame me. If I had woken up sooner, I would have long chased you, not wasting a few decades." "Don't worry, at least you have me now," Skye comforted. "By the way, can you tell me about your strength?" Skye asked curiously. "Do you want to know the lie or the truth?" "What about the truth? What about the lie?" Skye rolled her eyes. "The lie is that I can barely match a beginner Tier 9 Apex Sovereign. The truth is I can fight back-to-back with almost any Apex Sovereign without losing any ground," Maximus explained. At his current strength, besides the ancient Apex Sovereign, no one could make him scared. "So powerful," Skye said, looking at him obsessively. "This is just a bit of your husband's power." Maximus teased as if he was ready for another round. "Really? Is there any more power?" Skye asked as her hands became dishonest and crawled down on his stomach. After fighting with Maximus in bed, she experienced a different kind of euphoria that she can't get in the battle arena. Hearing that Maximus still had stamina, she couldn't help but be excited. "This is the ultimate power of your husband." Maximus looked intently. When it comes to this, Maximus was confident. "Unlimited mana is invincible." "Hee hee, you sure talk tough. Then let me show you around." Chapter 254 Shadowhunter Pavillion. Half a year later, with the annual exchange event beginning, beings from all over Purgatory poured into Purgatory City. Upon arriving in the city, the veterans suddenly spotted a new shop. "Shadowhunter Pavillion? What kind of is this? Maybe it's an individual shop?" "Impossible. Look at the shop's exterior, it's comparable to the top guilds." The crowd discussed as they approached the shop. "It should be a low-level shop." "Look, it doesn't even have a steward," a man said, noticing that no one was greeting them. "Maybe the shop is still closed." "No, look, there is a person in front," a man said, seeing Maximus. "Then let's go. What's this shop selling?" Inside, it didn't look like much. Besides a grand interior, there wasn't even anything for sale. They wondered if this was a service shop or something. "Hello, are you the shopkeeper here?" "Yes, I'm the owner and the shopkeeper of the Shadowhunter Pavilion," Maximus casually nodded. After attaining a Vanquisher status, he immediately took Skye back to Purgatory City and built this shop. Unfortunately, there wasn't much traffic as the annual exchange event was still a few months away. Maximus and Skye could only return to the Eternal Ruin Outpost to collect more Origin Abyss sources. However, Maximus grew somewhat lazy after earning a massive harvest in one battle. After all, the effort of one battle was more profitable than a decade of relentless searching. Maximus could just wait for a big battle and have another harvest. Of course, such a disaster could barely happen each century, so Maximus still needed to hunt from time to time. Fortunately, there is a shop where he can have another major source of Abyss sources. "Shopkeeper, what service does your shop provide?" a man asked. "This is a commissioning shop. You can buy everything from us using shadow coins." "Shadow coins?" "Shadow coins are the currency of the shop that you will get when you have something that the shop wants," Maximus explained. The crowd listening to Maximus's explanation was shocked. So arrogant? Who in their right mind would implement a new currency just for a shop? Can this shop really have anything I want? Are there other ways you can earn shadow coins?
Shopkeeper, how can you guarantee that you will be able to have what we want? The crowd grew into a commotion as they jeered and asked Maximus questions one after another. First, shadow coins can only be used in the shop, so just imagine that it was guild contribution points. Second, yes, this shop sells everything you want. From the Ethereum realm to the Abyss, as long as you know it, we have it. As for the other way to earn shadow coins, there should be in the future, Maximus said after thinking. Now, he only wanted Abyss sources, so he couldn't think of anything for their people to do. After his guild came here and set up an outpost, there should be many ways for them to earn shadow coins. And lastly, about how can I guarantee that I have everything you wanted? You can look at the product first before initiating the transaction. After his explanation, some grew excited and some grew doubtful. However, most of them thought that Maximus was bragging. If it's true, how could the shopkeeper still talk to them casually? The Apex Sovereigns should have already robbed him if anything he said was real. The Abyss realm is a chaotic place. Without the supervision of the Ethereum world's origin and those ancient Apex Sovereigns who want to better the world. Those Apex Sovereigns can act wantonly whatever they want. As long as they do it discreetly, they can still return to the Ethereum realm like nothing happened. This is also why Maximus was careful in everything. Fortunately, he already had the strength to fight back, so he didn't worry much. After hearing the explanation of the Shadow Hunter's pavilion, most of the crowd left, with their curiosity satisfied. Although they didn't know what Maximus wanted, looking at the luxurious interior, they were definitely not simple. For a poor bloke like them, just stepping inside was already enough. For the remaining crowd, they still looked at Maximus to ask what he wanted. For now, we only accept Abyss Source. For Tier 4 Abyss Source, it's worth 10,000 shadow coins. For Tier 5 Abyss Source, it's worth 100,000 shadow coins. For Tier 6 Abyss Source, it's worth 1 million shadow coins. For Tier 7 Normal Abyss Source, it's worth 1 billion shadow coins. For Tier 7 Elite Abyss Source, it's worth 100 billion shadow coins. For Tier 7 Lord Abyss Source, it's worth 1 trillion shadow coins. Maximus told the prices one by one. So expensive. The pricing of Maximus made it seem that shadow coins were 100 times more valuable than crystal merits. How is it? Is there any one of you who has Abyss Source to trade? Unfortunately, to his disappointment, most of the crowd left. What a joke! If they had this kind of resource, why still stay in this desolate shop? They would have probably already used it or cashed it through others. Maximus didn't mind, anyway he had nothing to do. All the Abyss sources in the city were already scoured by him. Just when he was about to get some snacks to pass the time, he noticed that one person was still remaining. Oh? What is the name of this gentleman? Maximus asked curiously. I'm Regolius. Do you want to exchange anything? Yes, do you have Scarlet Veil Root? Regolius asked nervously. Scarlet Veil Root is a Tier 8 plant originating from the Ethereum realm. It's a soul-healing herb but also the most effective in healing blood curses and the like. Yes, we have it. It's worth 10,000 shadow coins. Great! Regolius almost jumped in excitement. The blood curse had tortured him for almost a century. Seeing hope, he nearly cried. Here is a Tier 4 Abyss Source. Regolius readily gave the Abyss Source without seeing the actual product. Here is the Scarlet Veil Root, Maximus happily said. Although it was nothing to him, it was his first transaction after all. It's Scarlet Veil Root. Regolius muttered excitedly. Swallowing the herb, he felt his blood curse begin to dissipate. Feeling relaxed, he couldn't help but be grateful to Maximus. I will come back again. Although he didn't know if this shop really had everything, Regolius still planned to come back and try in the future. You're welcome anytime. After the first transaction, more and more people came to the shop, hearing its reputation. Whether it's rare Abyss Realm or Ethereum Realm resources, the shop really had it all. Maximus also smiled widely, seeing the business continue to pour in. Even Skye, who was shopping around the city, was called by him to help. Although most of the transactions were Tier 4 and 5 Abyss sources, seeing the blooming business was enough. Maximus knew that these were just the warm-up for the main show. Most of those who had Tier 7 and above Abyss sources were still watching. Soon after a few days, someone finally took the bait. In a shop's private room. Hello, shopkeeper, I'm Win. Hello. I have a Tier 7 normal Abyss source here, Win said nervously. He and his squad nearly died to get this Abyss source.
He feared that Maximus would become greedy and directly rob him. After all, you need at least a vanquisher status to set up a shop. This is not only a status, it's also proof that the shopkeeper was a strong and ruthless killing machine.
What do you want to exchange for it?
Maximus asked without changing his face.
Do you really have everything here?
When asked to confirm.
Yes, just ask away.
Then do you have an abyssalite core? Do you plan to set up an outpost? An abyssalite core is the main component of the teleportation array in the abyss. Without it, the abyss aura can destabilize the array and cause problems.
Do you have it?
Wynn didn't answer and asked nervously.
Yes, we have it,
Maximus nodded.
Can I see it?
Of course, but first, you need to sign this, Maximus said, taking out a piece of paper.
An abyssal contract paper?
Wynn muttered. Regular contracts here wouldn't work as they didn't have the supervision of the Ethereum world's origin. Thus, a bunch of Apex sovereigns formulated a new contract method based on the rules of the Abyss. However, because it's troublesome to make, it's very expensive. Maximus only used this for confidentiality. He didn't care about low-level transactions, but a contract is needed for this one. Although he had the strength to fight an Apex sovereign, he still didn't want to reveal his wealth. After Wynn read the contract and saw it was only a confidentiality contract, he heaved a sigh of relief and quickly signed it. Here is the abyssalite core.
You really have it? How much is this?
Wynn grew excited and quickly asked for the price. It's 1 billion shadow coins.
So cheap.
Wynn muttered, took out the Tier 7 Abyss source in his possession and traded it to Maximus. Nice doing business with you.
It's my honor, Wynn said.
Then you are welcome to come again. Chapter 255 Apex Sovereign Ambush. 10 years later. In Purgatory City, at the Shadowhunter Pavillion. Maximus looked at the bustling store as he calculated his gains over the past decades. With the puppet taking care of the shop, he didn't need to worry about anything else. He only needed to tabulate the necessary resources and bought them every other day. During these 10 years, the reputation of the shop continued to grow. Maximus had almost all the monopoly of lower-tier Abyss source. Furthermore, for higher-tier Abyss source, although there was a confidentiality contract, many keenly noticed that all those who traded with him got what they wanted. Every year, he could harvest the equivalent of over 10 billion system points worth of Abyss source just in the shop. However, fame also came with danger. Throughout the decade, Maximus and Skye faced frequent attacks from Tier 8 squads. Luckily, there wasn't any Apex sovereign who showed any interest in him. His wealth still can't move those Apex sovereigns from high above. After all, instead of arguing with him, they can earn more if they fight honestly. His wealth is so insignificant that it can't move their hearts. Of course, Maximus still had to be careful about everything. Who knows if there was a crazy lunatic who wanted to play with him. Just when he was in deep thought, a knock came at the door.
Come in. Maximus.
Skye closed the door and eagerly came into his embrace. What happened?
Are you bored with shopping?
No, I just miss home.
Skye sighed.
What he meant by home is their little manor in the Ethereum realm. Maximus' wives and children, the little things. Skye felt reminiscent for the first time. I also miss home. Maximus nodded sadly. How can he not miss them after 20 years of not seeing his family? There are also his grandchildren. He wondered if there were any additions to the family. Unfortunately, this damn Abyss realm is quite difficult. Even a bit of communication is not possible.
When do you think we can go back?
Although they can absorb and condense their own merits crystal without any interest from the origin will. The crystal merits they needed are still enormous. She didn't know how much Maximus needed, but for her, she needed at least 100 quadrillion crystal merits. Even with their current profits, earning that amount would take thousands of years. Soon, we will come back soon, Maximus said solemnly, kissing her forehead. Maximus estimated that he only needed about 15 years to condense enough mana to leave this damn world. I hope so, as Skye looked at him hopefully. Trust me. While they were flirting, his token suddenly vibrated.
What is it?
Maximus asked Tintin. A mandatory mission, Maximus Shadowcrest, is needed urgently in Gold Hive Outpost, Tintin replied. Oh, Maximus nodded. Although his Vanquisher status granted him many privileges, it came with corresponding responsibilities. For example, from time to time, some public outposts needed some help. Vanquishers and executioners needed to mandatorily help once instructed. "I need to go first," Maximus told Skye.
Be careful out there."
"I will." Getting into the teleportation array, he saw others with the same status as him. They were also in the city waiting for some task. After all, staying in the Eternal Ruin outpost was quite dangerous. They would rather rot here and wait for mandatory missions from time to time and earn some big money. As the array lit up, he suddenly felt a spiritual force put a mark on him and disturbed the teleportation array signal, wrapping him.
"Ambush?"
Maximus hurriedly thought. Before he could think any further, the teleportation array finished activating. In the Abyss Wasteland. Knowing something was wrong, Maximus didn't panic and carefully looked around. This is the first time someone has blatantly tried to ambush him.
"The thief saint flinch?"
Maximus muttered, finally seeing the culprit. "As expected of a prodigy, you quickly sense me," Flinch praised. "I didn't expect that the thief saint was interested in me, a little fish," Maximus sighed. Thief Saint Flinch was the god of theft and robbery who hijacked the god's authority of the previous thief god. He called himself a saint because he was previously the saint of that thief god. Maximus could only shake his head at such irony when he had read about it. "Of course, I would not be interested in a normal little fish." "But you are a little fish with a golden body," Flinch teased.
"So, what is it? What do you want from me?"
Maximus asked coldly. He didn't look a bit scared. This thief saint was only promoted to a high god in less than an epoch. It can be said that he was weaker than Lysarian Silverleaf, the newly promoted apex sovereign from the Arcane Continent. After all, before Lysarian was promoted to Tier 9, he underwent tens or hundreds of epochs of refining. A mere god who relied on a quick and easy path to gain strength would undoubtedly be weaker. Of course, I want everything you have from now and the future," Flinch licked his lips. He had long regarded Maximus as his prey. The little subordinate he sent to Maximus from the past decade was almost all from him. To his surprise, Maximus seemed to have an overwhelming strength coming unscathed from all of this. Looking at the fearless kid, Flint's interest was aroused. Besides stealing what he wanted, the most was to play with these talented prodigies. While imagining Maximus exploding from anger, what he received was a nonchalant shake of the head.
"Huh?"
Flinch looked in surprise.
"What do you mean?"
"I mean, you're too weak to get anything from me," Maximus muttered emotionlessly.
"Interesting."
Flinch's smile was widening. "Are you a pervert?" Maximus asked, seeing Flinch look at him obsessively. I'm just romantic, as I would say," Flinch refuted. "You're indeed a pervert," Maximus said with goosebumps.
"How about we play?
I will guess what item I can steal from you. If I'm wrong, I will leave?" Flinch said with a smile as he mobilized the law of thievery.
"Oh?"
Maximus looked with interest when he suddenly felt surrounded by the essence of law. "I guess I will get all your crystal merit." Soon, the essence of law surrounding him began to converge, sensing all of his crystal merits. Of course, Maximus wouldn't let that pass. Disguising his crystal merits, he quickly bought concentrated feces and quickly disguised it as crystal merit. "Then I guess what you got was a piece of shit," Maximus smiled teasingly. Before Flinch could react, a massive load of feces was teleported to his face. However, to Maximus's disappointment, instead of being angry, Flinch looked more interested. Flinch's nose twitched as if he was smelling the feces. "A feces of a Tier 9 mystic muskstalker?" Flinch muttered, licking the feces to confirm his guess. "What a great treasure," Flinch said happily. Maximus, seeing this, just rolled his eyes.
"What the heck?
Do you still dare to lick it?" Maximus cursed countless times, facing this lunatic. "Good. Do you still have this treasure?" Flinch seemed to have found his money bag. Although the feces of the mystic muskstalker were the stinkiest feces of all Ethereum realm, they are an excellent tonic for spiritual plants. No more, Maximus quickly shook his head. At the same time, he couldn't help but reflect. Seeing that it was the smelliest, he brought it without hesitation, regardless of the price. Who knew that he would face such a pervert?
I think there is more."
Flinch muttered as he mobilized the essence of law again. "I thought you said if you guessed wrongly you would leave?" Did I say that?" Flinch suddenly stopped.
"Yes."
"I don't remember anyway." Flinch played dumb and came to steal from Maximus again. Maximus just shook his head and disguised a rock which was quickly teleported to Flinch. He can't invalidate this skill as he still can't control the power of law. He can only fool it with tricks. A rock? Flinch frowned in disappointment.
Kid, what about other things?
Flinch said, urging the essence of law again. Unfortunately, what he got was another rock.
I don't believe it.
Flinch muttered. Unfortunately, after hundreds of times, what he got was still a rock. It's useless, Maximus finally smiled. It seems that you still have some skill, kid. Flinch finally gave up using his little tricks. Can you send me to the Gold Hive outpost already? Maximus muttered lazily. The Thief Saint's reputation in the Abyss realm is quite extensive. He steals from all newcomers like entertainment. The reason he hasn't been on the wanted list until now is that he never harms those he steals from. He will groom them like leek, cutting from time to time. This also made many eager to have Flinch steal from them. After all, although they will lose something occasionally, they can also have an apex sovereign backer.
How can I send you back without getting something valuable?
Flinch quickly shook his head. Didn't I give you a valuable shit? That doesn't count, I got it with my own ability, Flinch quickly denied. What a mess, Maximus thought. He really didn't want to talk to individuals with this kind of weird brain circuit. Who knew if he could get infected?